All right, first week of May 2024, and I'm going to take advantage of this gorgeous day and do a little foraging. I think things are kind of at their peak in my upper Midwest zone 4 region. It's been rainy for the most part most of the week, so this is the weekend, and we actually had a pretty decent weekend, I think. So here, I've done videos on this before in the past, but we've got violets, which are edible. We may make a salad out of those. The violet flowers can be white or they can be just purple. You can candy those. I'll put the video below. There are some ramps right there. The fat long leaves here. Okay, just in reason, just right there, right? So these are ramps here. Then here, this is garlic mustard, right? Young garlic mustard. Right next to it are cleavers. Okay, these are all. Everything I'm pointing out is edible. If we go even deeper here, like this little plant here, right there, that's creeping Charlie. So we're kind of in a nice little hot zone, where there seems to be a lot of nitrogen in the soil for a lot of our favorite edibles. And then going along, if I'm careful, right here, and I noticed these a couple of weeks ago, they were really young, and these are stinging nettles, which is a good time to harvest here. These are stinging nettles, and these are good to harvest now. And the thing about spring is the energy from the perennial plants comes up and into the young leaves, the young sprouts. Okay, so the energy is there. So when you're harvesting for edibles, a lot of things are actually in their young stage are quite edible and succulent before they actually develop any sort of toxins that would hurt you. But in general, what I'm pointing out are plants that you can eat and that are delicious. I don't really go into a whole bunch of plants that you have to do a whole bunch of work with in order to eat them. The energy comes up into the sprouts, which is especially for medicine making. Nettles, for example, we want to make sure that the energy, we want to collect them young. Now, this is a nice little small patch. I don't want to take everything at all. I want this to kind of grow up, because as it gets taller, as many of you know who follow my channel or who have done their own studies, you can make fibers out of the plants, okay? So out of the stalks as they get taller. Okay, so right now at this stage, I'm going to use some of them for eating, and some of them for medicine making. Okay, and then the violets, the little blue flowers there, I'm going to pick some of those, plus the leaves are edible. And then the ramps here, the ramps there are going to start to wither. So I think they're kind of at their last legs. They're very early in my region. They're very early, very tasty wild edible. So, all right, what we have here is jewelweed coming up. Jewelweed is a very good medicinal plant, and again, I knew there was plantain. I've seen sun plantain, Plantago major, Plantago lanceolata coming up. When I was at the nettle patch, I got stung. But what you can do is you can take the very tips of the nettles and make a spit poultice or chew them up and put it on your stings, and it neutralizes it slowly. So I'm not stinging anymore. But jewelweed generally grows in the same proximity as the nettles, and you can take the jewelweed, which is a succulent. You can take the stem when it gets more mature, and it's mucilagic. It's slimy, and you can spread that on your stings or cuts and bites and things, and it's soothing. So jewelweed is very good for that. And again, usually the antidote to poison ivy or stinging nettle or poison oak or something like that is usually somewhere nearby. So jewelweed is one of those good medicinal plants you want to get to know. Later on, in the later part of the spring, this will get pretty tall, and it'll have really pretty little flowers that come on. We'll look at this later on in the season once they get bigger. Okay, what we have here is either next to the creeping Charlie. What we have here is either Solomon seal or false Solomon seal. Solomon seal is known as bone set, and it's good for when you break bones. It's got also other medicinal uses, but we will not know the difference until they get more mature. And both Solomon seal and false Solomon seal have medicinal properties, but once they get more mature, then you can identify them. It's very, very difficult to identify young plants at this stage, right? Unless you really know them, or they stand out, like this creeping Charlie, for example. This garlic mustard, for example, in the early spring. So many plants like this, unless you're really, really educated, you will not know until they get more mature. All right, so that's why I'm really showing plants that are hard to misidentify in the early stages of their development. So again, as I'm just going out and about and doing my little foraging foray here, I'm just coming across some plants that I know that are really standing out early on. Okay, now here's a healthy patch of ramps here, and they're probably at their peak. They're right at their peak. So the bulbs are going to be big, the leaves are still going to be spicy. So I'm gonna harvest some of these, and again, notice emphasis on some, not all, so they can come back. So the next spring edible, we might get a little wet here, is it's a little bit late. It's a little bit early yet, but we want the cattail shoots. Cattail is a species of grass, and you just kind of pull straight up, and this is the part that's edible up into the white part. Okay. Generally what you do is you make sure you harvest from a real nice clean lake. I'm in a city lake, but I've been doing this a while, so the very end is succulent and tasty raw, but you can pickle these, you can fry these, cut them up in a salad. So, but I think in another week they should be coming up and be a little bit bigger, bigger around. So, but what you don't want to do is confuse them with calamus. And there's some calamus here. This is calamus right there. So it's flat instead of round or circular, okay? So this is what you want. That's cattail. This is calamus, non-edible, okay? This is edible. In fact, this is called the supermarket of the swamp. So this time of year, early spring, they start popping up. I would say in another week or so, they'll be ripe, and more will grow towards the shore, unless you don't mind getting your feet wet. So coming to the end of today's foray here, and we have a very nice healthy patch of garlic mustard, and it's actually like right outside my back door of apartment building. We also have yellow dock. This is yellow dock. It's very good medicinally and edibly. It makes a good substitute for spinach in many recipes, especially a lasagna that I've made before. So they're right next to each other. So this is going to be the last bit of foray today, and then it's on to processing. But garlic mustard here, and we've got yellow dock. So I'm out on my balcony, and I'm next to a busy street, so it kind of sucks because it's very noisy during the day. And it's a Sunday, and it's nice out, so everybody and their mom's running around. So anyways, excuse the noise. I'll try to talk loudly. So this is kind of what we harvested today. I put them in water until I'm ready to harvest them so they don't wilt too much. Okay. So over here, we've got Creeping Charlie, which makes a good tea. I'm going to look into this horse mint. And again, mints have square stems. Okay. And it's young enough. It has a kind of a pungenty smell. I don't know, it could be burned as an incense, but I'm going to do further research on this plant here, more on this horse mint later. But Creeping Charlie is a type of mint as well. My camera just doesn't want to focus. phone cameras. But anyway, this has a square stem, and it has a kind of a minty or a very pungent flavor in the leaves. I would like the flowers. These violet colored flowers are very kind of iridescent at dusk. It's actually really nice if you really pay attention. And right now, early spring, they're flowering. Over here I have Violetta or odorata, I believe I pronounced that correct, and these are violets. There's white violets, and then there's the purple violets. Okay, I've done a video before on making candied flowers out of the violets. I'll put the link below. The leaves of the violets are edible. There are some medicinal uses as well. It makes a good poultice for bruises and rash and things like that. So again, I'm just keeping them in a little bit of water just so that they don't wilt on me, because I may make a small salad. Here we have the garlic mustard that we harvested earlier. Again, I'm keeping them in water. And then here's some more horse mint that's in there. But here's the garlic mustard. Again, you can make good pesto out of it. It's a good pot herb, as you say. You just kind of wilt it or blanch it and mix it with, dandelion, maybe a little bit of creeping Charlie here, and maybe some ramps or something like that, and just kind of boil it real quick. Add a little salt, pepper, butter, boom, you have some nice greens. Again, I got harvested a bunch of the garlic mustard because I want to do a couple of culinary things with them. Next, we have the yellow dock leaves. Now, the yellow dock is going to be there for a minute. The patch that I had found, my neighbor over there came through and chit-chatted, and I told her about what I was harvesting. So a little bit of education of the neighbors when they are inquisitive. But she's a really nice person, though. Her and her husband are very nice. Anyways, this Rumex crispus, I believe is the Latin name, yellow dock. Again, I don't believe it looks anything like burdock that has burrs. The root of this is medicinal. It's yellow, so thus the term yellow dock. I believe that when it matures, it grows a kind of a flowery bunch that has seeds that I believe you can mash and make into flour for cooking in that. Okay. Obviously, we've got the ramps here that I'm going to harvest. There's a recipe I want to try. I may go out and harvest a little bit more before they're all gone for the year, because they end up flowering and then they just kind of wilt away or go to dormant again. So there's the patches that I found have been somewhat abundant, so I'm okay with harvesting the bulbs this time. Normally you just pick the leaves, and as you can see, they normally grow 2 to a bulb. So I usually just pick one leaf when I find it, so that the plant can continue to grow. All right, down here we have the stinging nettle. Again, stinging nettle is again one of my top 5s. Okay, so it's edible. It's very edible. Tastes really good. I have a recipe for making soup out of the nettle. It's tasty. It's got the highest amount of protein in the plant family, but it's not animal protein. Okay, we need animal protein, especially if you're out in the bush or, in a survival situation. Okay, you just can't live off this plant protein, but it has a large amount of plant protein and other nutrients. The stems can be made. Obviously, I've done plenty of videos on how to use the stems to make cordage fibers, and it's antihistaminic, so it's good for allergies and hay fevers, asthma, things like that. So this stinging nettle is actually a very, very useful plant. Okay, very, very useful plant. Next, and we have early cattails. So this, I'm just keeping them in water so they don't wilt too much, but all the way to the white part is edible. I may keep the leaves for little projects here, but what I've done before is I've cut open a can, the top and the bottom, and dip the white up to about where it starts to turn green, and batter and put them in the can in some grease so that they stand upright and it tastes really good. So I would say, it's kind of like a corn dog cattail or something like that. But this is edible raw. You can pickle them. You can obviously you can freeze them. You can cut them up, put them in the soups, things like that. Cattail again is one of my top 5 plants because it's useful all year round. It's hard to misidentify, especially as it matures. It's a nickname, the supermarket or the Walmart of the swamp, or the lake or whatever, because they from a survival standpoint, cattails grow in water.
They are a species of, like bamboo, they're a species of grass, but they grow in water. So the roots are edible, the stalks are edible, the female and male part at a young stage are edible, and then the pollen is edible. And then you can make the stalks out of all kinds of stuff. In fact, I've got some stalks over there that, again, excuse these loud people. I got these stalks over here along with some other cordage, some grapevines, but those are cattail stalks. You can make hand drills out of them, arrows, shafts. You can make spears or whatever you need, mats and things like that. So very useful plant. Is one of the my top 5 plants to know, because again, it's hard to misidentify. It's pretty much all over the world. It's has edible, medicinal, and utilitarian properties. So those are some of my top 5 plants. That would be the dandelion, the stinging nettle, the cattail. The other 2 would be yarrow and plantain. So more about that. I'm thinking about doing a project with about those top 5 plants to get people started into foraging and at least understanding. Because when you're out in the bush, my understanding, at least even when I've always kind of been sort of used to being out in the woods. But anyways, for most people, I understand that the woods look like just a wall of green until you start to get to know a plant. Then once you get familiar with that plant, you're looking at another plant and you're like, okay, what's this plant? You pick it, you smell it. Again, none of these look like poison ivy. Okay, and this poison ivy is not even up yet. All right, none of these look like poison ivy. So you can pinch this and be like, what's this? And smell it. It's like, oh, this smells like onions. You can pick this. It's like, oh, these are pretty flowers. You pick this and crush up the leaves. Smell. Oh, this smells like garlic onion. So on and so forth. So again, this is the bounty of my harvest today. My foray, early spring 2024. So I'm gonna get to making stuff. It's been a busy day, and I'm happy to share this with you. There'll be more to come, especially as I do different recipes with these. These will have to be blanched and then put in a freezer. I'm gonna process these right away. I'm gonna most likely dry these out. I'm gonna dry these out, add maybe as a little garnish for salad. And I'm going to make a soup out of some of these, and there's many more to harvest. I need to make some more tinctures and some syrups out of it. The stalks aren't tall enough really to make any fibers, so that's probably what I'm going to do with those. And then obviously I'm going to work on a recipe with here and my girlfriend likes to use the leaves for different things. She makes a ramp butter, and she's made ramp salt, so I need to get her on here and show us how she did those with the leaves here. So anyways, I got work to do. All right, I'm back. I need to correct myself here. I called this horse mint. This is not horse mint. This is actually catnip. All right, catnip makes a good tea, and obviously if you have cats, it's good for cats too. So there's plenty of big patches. I've been calling it horse mint. Horse mint actually has thinner, slender, smoother leaves. So I'm mistaken on that. I know it's a mint because it's part of the mint family because it has a square stem. However, not all plants have square stems are actually a type of mint, but the majority that I know of are. So anyways, my bad correction is that this is catnip, not horse mint. All right, next up on our foray today's early spring vegetables, wild edible plants are, obviously ramps here, which is really what I was after, but it was just everything was at its peak today. This is early May 2024. And what we have here is burdock, okay? So burdock is a biennial plant. It grows the first year really low to the ground, and the roots are what we are really after to eat. But the roots grow really long. The other term is gobo. I think I did a short video on that about this is eaten worldwide. Okay, here it's an obnoxious weed with big leaves, which are actually useful if you're doing underground cooking. I have a small segment on my website on how to do that. I don't have my own yard, otherwise I'd show you how to do that. Or maybe I'll go camping sometime this year. We'll see what happens. At any rate, as you can see, the ones that I harvested with my little shovel here, this is a very, very young one, so I was able to get the whole piece. It is chopped off, right? This might be a second year one that was coming up. So, because as you can see, this plant grows really, really long. The root grows really, really long. So this is grown and mostly eaten in the first year of its growth. And the stalks you have to grow in like a pile of dirt so that they're easily to pull up. Otherwise, you seriously need like a backhoe to like just dig up the whole root, and even then you might nip off some. So you generally see in the Asian market or international markets, they will sell the long, slender stems or roots of the burdock plant. So Articum lappa, I believe, is the Latin name. And also the stems you can eat. I wouldn't really eat the leaves. The leaves are not very edible, but they're good to wrap meat in and put and bake them in the earth, in the ground. The stems here, I've cooked and made a dal, which is an Indian dish. The stems. Now there's a lot of acidity in the leafy part of the burdock, and you really have to boil this out. So you really have to kind of really, just the stem, you want to just boil that out. Let's see what else. Oh, lastly, it's the burrs. The burrs are probably the inspiration for Velcro, and very useful if like you lose a button or a zipper or mostly in the fall or winter time, and you need to keep your clothes together. You can, if you find the skeleton of a second year growth of burdock, you can use the burrs and make little like Velcro strips, and that'll keep your clothing shut. So burdock is actually very useful. It's hard to misidentify. It kind of has a look-alike, not really, which is yellow dock, which is also edible and medicinal. So yeah, so I gotta take a potato scrubber and scrub off the roots, and then I'll probably, I may keep the stems, not sure, but yeah, we're just really after the roots this time. All right, here is the whole dreaded dandelion. Dun dun dun. And almost all of it is edible. Okay, so I went on my big early spring foraging excursion today. So I got a lot of wild edibles, early spring wild edibles that I'm familiar with. I'm sure there's more that I missed that I'm not familiar with. Anyhow, first off, we can start with the root. The root makes a very, very good coffee-like substitute. It also has medicinal properties. Dandelion in itself is a diuretic, meaning it makes you urinate. For those people that have issues with that or that need to cleanse their bodies. It's off the charts in vitamin A and K and different vitamins and things like that. The leaves, as I've shown in a snippet before, are even sold commercially, okay? And when they're cultivated, they're huge leaves. Dandelions try to grow above the neighboring foliage, right? So sometimes some dandelion is real close, the flowers are real close to the ground. Well, that's usually like a manicured or mowed yard or field. Or you see in a wild setting, a meadow where the grasses are taller, the dandelion stems like this one are really long, all right? So the stems, not so much edible, but they do create a milky substance, which is essentially latex. Milkweed does the same thing. So that white sap is latex, which could be used for rubber. Okay, on milkweed, I believe in World War II they were looking at cultivating milkweed in order to harvest the latex so that they can make rubber. So anyways, the actual bud before it opens into a flower is edible, and then the flower is edible as a fritter, and it can be used as a dye. And the petals, okay, the yellow part, not the green part, can be picked off. It's kind of time consuming to do it, and that's kind of child labor. You put them to work on doing that. The petals are what you use to bake with, or to make wine or drinks or different things like that. So this whole plant is as useful and edible and medicinal. Okay, so those are my 3 criteria for a very beginning plant, and dandelion is my first on the first 5 plants that I would like people to know, if they don't know any other plants at all. And they're hard to misidentify, and any lookalikes like there would be sow thistle, for example. That looks like the flower's a little different. The leaves are shaped different. That's an edible plant as well. It's not going to harm you, anything like that. So there's no harmful lookalikes for a dandelion. Also, the reason why they're called dandelions, or dent de lion, excuse my French. Dent meaning teeth, lion is lion. So dandelion is the teeth of the lion, right? In Japanese, it's called tampopo. So there's a movie called Tampopo, actually, in Japanese movies. It's about a single mom who becomes a noodle maker, ramen maker. Anyways, look that up. It's a good movie. So anyways, dandelion is a very good spring vegetable and medicinal and useful plant. Okay, so we're going to start off. I'm going to pick the leaves. I may do something with the flowers. You want to freeze the flowers right away for later use, okay? Because if you just let them sit out, they will turn into the white fluff, which is also useful when you're making tinder bundles for fire making. So I want the root, because I'm going to make coffee-like substitute. It tastes really good. And then I want the stems, the leaves, for cooking, salad making, and also for dyeing as well. So that's dandelion. That's the whole plant. So those people that can't stand it in their nice manicured yard, just go ahead, dig the whole thing up and use it. All right, so here are some of our root vegetables. There's the burdock here, kind of all cleaned up. So what they look like without all the dirt on them. And then here's the dandelions, all cleaned up. That's what they look like without the dirt on them. And you just use a potato brush, kind of a scrubby brush, or your hands, So that's how they look. All right. So last, not least, is our cleavers. Okay. I actually have to clean these out because some of these actually cling to everything. They're called cleavers. They have the different types of names that it relates to clingings to stuff. These young shoots, as I've explained before, you can eat them, you can nibble on them raw, but you got to be careful when touching them because they might be, it might be an irritant, similar to your skin. You get dermatitis if you have sensitive skin. But you can blanch these really good and eat them, and I've done it before. They're actually pretty tasty. They're also known as bed straw, so they do have a utilitarian use. And sometimes those that hike out in the woods, if you've walked with some sweatpants or jeans or whatever, these plants cling to you. These are cleavers, and they were used in Europe specifically for making mattresses. So because they cling together, as you see, this bunch kind of just wants to cling together. They got tiny hooks like Velcro that cling. So I'm going to blanch these and set these aside for later and figure out what to do with them. But I know that these will kind of sit for a little while as long as they're moist before I actually use them. So that is what we harvested today. Oh, and in case you caught this is a banana leaf. And I just thought this was kind of cool because my girlfriend returned from Japan in the late winter and visiting her mother, and she usually brings back omiyage or souvenirs, and usually it's usually some sort of food stuff. Mostly, I like the gummies. Anyhow, this banana leaf was used to wrap sushi, that had some mackerel on top of it. And I thought I was just gonna do a little segment on this, so I reconstituted it by wetting it down, and then it dries, and it's very parchment-like. The thing is that I know it splits, so you have to use it when it's moist. So I reconstituted it in warm water and wrapped it around this dowel here, and to figure out what to do with it later. So there may be a segment on how to use this. Anyhow, many cultures in the East use banana leaves, and I'm pretty sure in Polynesia as well, use banana leaves for all kinds of things, for crafts, baskets, wrapping food stuff in, rice balls, and like I mentioned, sushi and stuff like that. So I think this is an interesting plant, although it is not native to, the upper Midwest. So it's just kind of something you get at the, at the ethnic store or whatever. But it's just good to know in case you encounter these. Y'all out there in Florida or in the Caribbean or someplace like that, South America, you got your banana leaves. You probably could talk much more at length about banana leaves, this resource, than I could. But I just keep the stuff like this around to experiment with later. Okay, so I'm going to end this video out with just going through some foraging rules. I would be remiss if I left that out. All right, so I'll post this below, but here's some guidelines that I think it's important for people to follow, especially if you're new to wild foraging, particularly in an urban area or urbanized area. First rule is you only harvest plants that you 110% can positively identify. Okay, so if you, when in doubt, leave it out. Okay. 2, only harvest from areas where you have permission to do so. Okay, so be careful, going to people's yards. There's some government land that you might get in trouble if you get caught harvesting things. I know Steve Wildman Brills out in New York, and it started his career by getting caught by the park Gestapo because he was ate a dandelion. Yeah, you should read up on Steve Brills. He's got some very good information, and he's been doing wild foraging and giving tours in Central Park, New York for a long time. So make sure you have permission. Only harvest from areas are not sprayed, contaminated, or polluted. That's very important because the chemicals that they spray with are to get rid of the plants, or they may genetically alter the plants. You may be allergic to, or the chemicals they use might be toxic to your body, if not poisonous. Again, only ingest small amounts at first, okay, if you choose to forage and taste and try it. If you choose to do so, it's at your own risk. Okay, so I'm not telling you to go out and do this. Okay, I built my channel just to archive information. So do not use any of my videos as far as foraging is concerned as the source of truth. Okay, do your own research. Okay, we're in the information age, all right? Everybody bebopping and TikToking and all this other kind of crap and still know nothing. We have the world's knowledge at your fingertips. Use it. So do your own research, and or find someone in your area who is knowledgeable and competent in the subject matter. Okay, so many states, cities have colleges and herbalists and botanists and agriculturalists and foragers that are at your fingertips that you can look up locally. All right. Number 5 is especially important if you are new to foraging. Okay, so aside from the obvious dangers of thistles, poison ivy, poison oak, and deadly water hemlock, okay, that will kill you. Many wild plants contain off-the-charts vitamins and minerals which might create a shock to your system. Basically, what we normally eat at the grocery store, that head of lettuce, is basically full of water. It's most likely mutated, and it's just water. Okay, very little nutrition and value in that vegetable that you get from the grocery store, for the most part. So you need to consider the nutrient count of your average domesticated vegetable foodstuffs, as I said. Okay. Now, I like a gentleman on YouTube. His name is Green Deans of eattheweeds.com, and he has this is an addendum to Rule 1. Only harvest plants that you 110% positively identified. And he has an acronym called itemize for his rules of identification. So I of itemize is identify the plant beyond doubt. Be sure it is the right time for tea of the year. Okay, because certain plants are edible at certain types of the year, or certain parts of the plant are edible at certain times of the year. Check its environment. This involves 2 things. One is making sure it is growing in the right place. Okay, so if you have a plant that looks like a, we'll just say burdock for example, and it's growing on a mountainside, and chances are it's not burdock, because burdock is not known to grow on a mountainside, for example. They may, I don't live in a mountainous area, but from what I know, they grow lowland. And the other is making sure that the plant is getting clean water and is not polluted, and not in polluted soil. And then M for itemized is the method of preparation. So I identify time of year, environment, and then method of preparation with culinary uses and different things. So I like Green Dean. He's actually a very funny guy. He's very interesting. He knows a lot about his subject matter as a forager. He's out in Florida, so he's in a whole different growing zone. And there's many different, Florida's more tropical, subtropical. There's a lot more different plants that I don't have access to or know about there. So he would be definitely somebody under number 5 here that I would go look up and reach out to and say, hey, I'm in Florida. Show me around. What are the plants? Also out in Europe, I understand there's hogweed, which is a very, very notorious plant that is very, very toxic to your skin and creates boils and things like that. So, I can imagine being out in the Amazon. I've never been in the Amazon. I'm pretty sure there's all kinds of plants and things out there that are itching to get at you. I used to live out in the desert in Arizona. Everything wants to poison you or prick you, So, I got to know the region a little bit, but you got to really know what you're doing out there. I'd like to go out and study with Cody Lundeen out in Arizona one time. That's my dream. Just because I know that land, because I used to live out there, and I like his way of thinking. All right, now I'm going to switch quickly to some resources, especially if you're new to foraging. That I have a library of books, so this is just a few of them. Okay, so the Peterson Field Guides. Okay. This is Eastern and Central, so you want to make sure that they are within your range. So if you live in the Southwest, then you want to make sure you get a Peterson Field Guide for Southwest. This happens to be medicinal plants and herbs, and they just give a picture and kind of brief synopsis on what the plant is and what it can do and kind of how to use it and work it. Okay, and then this is an old book, but as you can see it's quite worn. This is one of my go-tos, and it's a North American Field Guide to Wild Edible Plants. Okay, and it's an outdoor life book. All right, so again, Peterson Field Guides, there's a ton of them. These are great. Okay, next you'd want to get books like these, Trees of Minnesota. I'm up here in Minnesota, upper Midwest, so a field guide for the different trees that we have in our region. Okay, I've had a lot of scout training as it relates to, not the Boy Scouts, but as it relates to basically disappearing in the woods if I wanted to or needed to. I haven't done a whole lot of that. I haven't spoken a lot on that because the knowledge in the wrong hands can be kind of not so good. I may open up my Patreon and put some of that content in there. I think I may do that pretty soon, so stay tuned to for that. But I bring this up is because the scouts need to know their trees. And when I get to that segment and I let you know that I've opened up Patreon for that content, then you'll understand why I bring that up. But trees of Minnesota, plants of Minnesota, etc., etc., the fauna, the different critters, of Minnesota or Texas or Florida or wherever you live. Okay, and usually you can get these at any state park in the gift shop, right? Backyard weeds of the upper Midwest. Again, make sure it is relevant to where you live. Okay, so there's another book here. Little cookbooks like this, pesto, the art of cooking with herb paste. So this is just different recipes using spinach, anchovy pesto, broccoli. There's nettles in here as well. So different books like that. You can get these at the secondhand store. Order them on Amazon for like $1. Most people aren't interested in this, although they're becoming more hip now. I guess rewilding now is becoming a thing. Prepping is a thing now. So this knowledge is very popular at the moment. This is a very, 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 very good book. What's Doing the Blooming by Clayton and Michelle Oslin. And if you notice here, these are tabs that go throughout the season, like early, mid, and late spring, summer, fall, winter, okay? And throughout the season here's the violets, right? For example, if you can see, right? And it's just identification, you know, based on what time of year it is of what's growing here, right? So this is a very, very, very good book. And even just for not even edible plants or medicinal plants, but books that, or excuse me, plants that you just want to know what that is. You know, you've seen it around, you know what it is, and then now you know what it is, you can look it up and see if there's any uses or for it, right? If you can use the plant. Again, I do a little bit of mushrooming. I go out with the Mycological Society of from the U of M, and those are the mushroom geeks. They're the mycologists. That's the study of mushrooms or fungi, and I can mushroom for the most part. And I know that I can go out, and I've gone on a few forays with them. I've gone out, so I'm fairly comfortable knowing what I can and cannot eat. I personally don't touch things that look like a particular, like a specific mushroom with the cap and the stem, just because there's too many lookalikes, and that's a dangerous area to tread. But you know, chanterelles and puffballs and things like that, you know, black trumpets, things that don't look like the average, the quintessential mushroom is what I'm usually after, because they're easy to identify. Let's see, next, John Apel. He's got a whole, this Botany in a Day is a very good book, all right, and it's Patterns, Methods of Identification by Thomas Elpel, excuse me, Tom. And so he just basically gives you a generalization on how to identify what a plant's family belongs to. You may not know the name of the plant, you may not know specifically, you know, what it is, but you can know what type of plant it is, because these plants fall into particular growing signatures. So this is a very good plant, or excuse me, I just keep saying that, a very good book to get or have in your library if you really want to get into foraging and knowing the plants around you in your region. And then lastly, I'm going to share, well, not lastly, I got one more thing to share with you, is Spirit of the Harvest, so North American Indian Cooking. Okay, this is a very good book. A lot of recipes from the Native American peoples throughout the North and South America. I find this very valuable just to figure out how Native peoples would use kind of the natural flora and fauna that you would find in the United States, or North America and South America, for example. And this is by Beverly Cox and Martin Jacobs. So the Spirit of the Harvest, North American Indian Cooking. Actually, this is for North American Indians, Native people. And then lastly, going through this real quick because I don't want this video to be extra long. Again, this is Green Dean from using the itemized method. This is his DVD set. All right, very, 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 very good. And the backs of these, you know, he covers. He talks about his itemizing wild edibles on here. What that means, he goes into sow thistle, wild mustard greens, making hard cider. Mulberry, Rumex, sorrel, bull thistle. You can eat bull thistle. I was going to share some of that when that gets mature. Plantain, spiderwort, henbit. So in each one of these, he actually goes into quite in-depth and very digestible information. And a lot of plants, you'd be surprised if they are in your region that you can eat them. All right, so that's what I have for this video. I know it may be a little bit long, but again, it's very important that you follow these rules so you can be safe. Okay, there's very few plants that are actually kill you outright. Water hemlock is one, and water hemlock looks like wild carrot. That's why I don't really go into it. And I did highlight wild carrot some years ago, but I didn't really focus on it because it looks too much like water hemlock. Okay, I can tell the difference, but I stay away from anything that has a very dangerous lookalike, just so that I don't make a mistake. Excuse the background noise. So anyways, I'm going to end this here, and again, you know, be sure to like, share, subscribe, put $1 in the tip jar if you found this information useful or inspiring. Thank you.